At the moment, I've already put questions on notice to the Minister for Primary Industries that why is it the case that the RSPCA New South Wales is killing twice as many dogs and cats virtually as Victoria. I mean, obviously death row at RSPCA, so the two main killers of dogs and cats are RSPCA and council pounds, which are run by, in the main, government departments, particularly the Department of Local Government. So obviously my campaign, as being Animal Justice Party, is for both those entities to look at the options of making sure that dogs that are on death row and cats that are on death row and that are about to be killed, that they have a working relationship with all of the rehoming and adoption organisations, of which there are almost 100 in New South Wales, in order that these animals can be given a second chance for these independent bodies or non-government organisations to be able to find them homes. Now, there are some councils, it's been pointed out to me that there are some councils that have actually adopted these programs. And so what the plan is that I've asked the government to commit to roll that out right across New South Wales so that many more cats and dogs will be saved, totally healthy animals be saved from death row. Now, in terms of the horse racing industry, well, they kill horses, that is a fact, but they certainly don't kill dogs, as far as I'm aware. But, you know, it's interesting that under the pressure of what's happened with the greyhound industry, the horse racing industry has announced a percentage of the takings from all of horse racing is going to go to rehoming horses, something the greyhound industry didn't even consider during the inquiry into them. I have to admit the horse racing industry has problems, but they don't do live baiting, and mainly the problems to do with the genetic loading of race horses and running them too young and not finding them homes when they are retired or don't make it to the track. But these things can be much more easily addressed in the horse racing industry as opposed to the live baiting greyhound industry. The answer to that question is that way is ridiculous and won't work. We've been killing animals for the last 170 years, considered noxious or unwanted, be they cats, foxes, wild dogs, and in fact dingoes and kangaroos and other animals. And, you know, even a very conservative veterinarian from the University of Sydney said that, you know, we've been killing animals like this for 170 years, and the problem is actually worse. If there is a problem, that's what has to be worked out first. But it's clear, you know, that this sort of demonising a species or several species gives an out for the government. Hitler did it with the Jews. Them over there, they've caused all the problems. Let's annihilate them. And so everybody feels good because something's being done and something aggressive and harsh is being done, and the culprit is being removed. Well, I put a question to the Minister Speakman, the Minister for the Environment, asking, has there been an analysis, objective analysis, of the impact on wildlife and wild flora and fauna by the difference between the impact between introduced species such as cats and foxes and agriculture, mining and the forest industry? Now, one tree felled by the forest industry removes so much habitat and so much source of food and shelter and nourishment for so many wild animals. The Minister said no, there hasn't been, and what would happen if there is an analysis, it would become very clear that the main destroyer of wildlife and many other animals is human intervention through forest deprivation, habitat destruction, agriculture and the mining industry. So we are the noxious pest, not the cats and the dogs and the introduced species. If it's determined that we do need to reduce the number, the best mechanism and the most humane is immunosterility programs or desexing and return, and that way the numbers of the animals slowly reduce, yet they keep control of the area and other animals can't come in to move into that area. And I think we all need to remember very clearly that this is the Animal Justice Party, not particular Animal Justice Party. So I stand by all animals, no matter what has been engraved into their forehead as to a particular type of animal. A cat and a dog and a fox and a camel and a donkey and a wild horse all are flesh and blood, just like the dog you pet, or the beautiful swans or wedge-tailed eagles. They all are flesh and blood and have neurophysiology and can suffer immensely from poisoning, suffocation, bludgeoned to death. They're all equal consideration for all animals is my platform and is the animal justice platform, and we cannot get into this argument about unwanted animals need less consideration than wanted animals. Well, I think we have to dispel a misconception there. I was actually at the meeting with all of the Muslim clerics where we looked at the stun. This is about 18 years ago, where we looked at the stunning mechanism used to stun animals in abattoirs. Now, in halal slaughter, the only requirement is that the animal is not killed by the stunning. So in many abattoirs, there's a captive bolt is used, and that will, in the main, kill the steer. And if it's used with sheep or other animals or goat, it will actually likely to kill them. So the law or the rules in halal is that the animal cannot be killed by the stunning process, but it must be killed by being bled out, by cutting the throat and the arteries, usually otherwise called as exsanguination. Now, what we showed the Muslim clerics is that you can electrically stun an animal, or you can percussive stun an animal, and then it will have a fit, and during the seizure it's unconscious but still alive. After the seizure it will stand up, and what it did in this case, it stood up and it looked at the Muslim cleric. So 98% of halal slaughter is using stunning, as specified in abattoirs, where they use either electric or percussive bolt stunning, where the animal is not killed. But just as is the case with all animals being slaughtered, except for in Jewish or kosher slaughter, the animal must be exsanguinated and rendered dead before it would otherwise regain consciousness. So halal, apart from the religious aspect to it, when properly done under regulations agreed to in abattoirs, is actually no different from normal slaughter, only that one type of stunning is not used, which could possibly kill the animal. Bill in at the moment to ban the use of primates in animal research, and I'll be candid, there is a chance we could get that bill through after a lot of debate. I would prefer that to be mice and guinea pigs as well, the whole spectrum of animals. My stand and the Animal Justice Party's stand is that animals should not be used in research at all, unless it's to help that animal, unless it's to do something to help that animal that where other treatments that are established aren't working, and you take a risk. We do it with humans all the time to try and help them, but it would be considered to be an experiment, but it's in the interest of the animal on the table or before us. Look, if you look at the research, there's overwhelming research to show that all of the experiments on animals very often leads us in the wrong direction, because animals, even though they are similar to us in many ways, they're also very different. So if you look at thalidomide and other drugs, penicillin, for example, when penicillin is used, it doesn't work on animals, but it certainly works on us. Thalidomide didn't cause any abnormalities of the fetuses in animals, but it certainly did cause dreadful abnormalities in humans. So to extrapolate from animal experimentation is dangerous, and I believe that we have actually not solved many problems of human health because we've been experimenting on animals. And humans are a very clever species. If you put a restriction on humans and ask us to find a solution to something, but there are restrictions. So for example, we can no longer experiment on Jews, Chinese people, black people, or the Defence Force. That is considered unconscionable. Though we might get some good results from those experiments, and apparently there were, but it is ethically completely unacceptable to do that. But within those restrictions, we are still, finding through tissue cell cultures and understanding cells just in themselves of humans, we're getting answers. But at the end of the day, my view and the Animal Justice Party's view is, even if it is argued and strongly argued that an experiment on an animal is likely to help a human being in research, the ethical question then comes into play, it comes into consideration, and I say, save both. We cannot ethically experiment on baboons, for example, killing hundreds of baboons to try and get marrow from the bone to treat people with dying from AIDS or whatever. What we do is we try to help both save the animal and try and put all the resources into helping the human conditions and diseases. But just like in the way I explained that we can't experiment on Indigenous people, or we can't experiment on Chinese people because that's unethical. We did once. Now we have to say we can't experiment on animals, and we will eventually find an answer to those questions with human health. At the end of the day, we are mortal. We are going to die. Something will take us. Disease will take us. I'm not against trying to find solutions and helping people with disease and pain and distress. But at the end of the day, we can't be expecting animals, like in xenotransplantation, like pigs being kept in absolutely clinical, sterile conditions, just so you might be able to have its liver in case your liver collapses or whatever. That's completely unconscionable. Hasn't been proven to be full of inaccuracies and lies, etc. I mean, there have been one or two aspects of it which have been in question, but I don't know of any report where there have been one or two aspects of it. But in the whole, the report is actually quite solid, and it's survived peer review, and it is robust. It's a report that the Greyhound industry commissioned. So it's not a report coming from somebody with any other vested interest. I've read the report and most of the report and the recommendations, and so have a lot of people who I have enormous respect for. And look, at the end of the day, and I've had direct contact with the people who are investigating the Greyhound industry, and the reality is there are a few good apples, a few. And I know that they've gone and got greyhounds and they just thought, oh, this might be something to make some money on the side, and they look after the animals very well and take them off the track and look after them for the rest of their lives. That would be about 5% of the industry. The industry is rotten to the core in almost every apple in the cart. And it's a culture of criminal activity and violence which just simply had to be stamped out. And as I said in my second reading speech to the bill, which is now an act, to ban greyhound racing in New South Wales, after 3.5 years of 3 different inquiries into the greyhound industry, it was quite clear that the industry could not save itself from itself. The regulators couldn't save it from itself. We're still digging up graves where dogs have been bludgeoned to death or suffocated or been tortured. Very few shot cleanly to the head. And the government, this is a very conservative government, they looked at the report and they realised that even the government, who indicated beforehand that they weren't going to ban the industry, realised that they could not save this industry from itself. So it's all over. The industry's finished. We now have 10 months to help the animals, the greyhounds, to find a new home. And if the greyhound industry is telling the world that they love their greyhounds, then why am I getting reports of trailers of greyhounds up to 5 a day being taken onto a property and then being bludgeoned to death or shot and buried? Where are the owners of those greyhounds who love them so much? Why aren't they stopping that trailer from taking them to their grave for nothing more than not getting a place in a race, or because the ban has been put in place?